Hey everyone, welcome to Resilient Inspirations. We're here to share ideas, swap stories, and just see where the conversation takes us. Nothing fancy, just real talk with a spark of inspiration. Let's dive in. I'll hand it over to the crew.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to take the relentless noise of our information age and really just turn it into clear, actionable knowledge for you.
And today, we are deep in it. We're talking about the digital world of 2025.
Absolutely. It's a world that's just defined by, generative AI everywhere and this constant personalized hum of notifications coming from our pockets. It's driven by machine learning. It knows exactly when to ping you.
It really does.
And if you're a professional listening to this and you feel that sort of low-grade anxiety, the fear that if you disconnect, you're going to fall behind.
Yeah.
Well, this deep dive is specifically for you. We're tackling that skepticism head on.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission today isn't just a book review. It's a really meticulous chapter-by-chapter extraction of the blueprint in the art of digital minimalism, a blueprint to thrive in the tech age.
It's a fantastic source for this.
It is. We're going to build a detailed framework, figure out who these strategies are really for, and I think most importantly, find the solid analytical arguments to convince that efficiency-focused skeptic, the person who hears digital detox and just thinks, inefficiency, lost opportunity.
And that's exactly the person the source material is trying to reach. It tackles that skepticism from the first page, basically proving that technology's dual nature is unsustainable.
What do you mean by dual nature?
Well, the promise of productivity on one hand, and the reality of just sheer overwhelm on the other, the data is, frankly, pretty compelling. In 2025, we've seen a 15% rise in reported digital fatigue.
15%? That's not insignificant.
It's huge. And even more staggering, a full 25% of professionals are citing burnout that they can trace directly back to this feeling of being perpetually online.
Wow.
So this deep dive, it offers a balanced framework to push back against that. It frames digital control not as some, new age luxury, but as the essential foundation for high-level performance.
Okay, let's unpack this then, starting right at the foundation, the foreword, chapter 1. What is the precise nature of this digital overload in 2025? And what's the initial shift in mindset that this blueprint demands from us?
So the foundation starts with diagnosing the problem as more than just being annoyed by notifications.
Right, it's deeper than that.
Much deeper. The book has this beautiful phrase for it. It calls it the quiet weight that descends. And that's so relevant now in the age of AI, where automation is supposed to give us more free time, but somehow we just have less focus.
It feels like that, doesn't it?
It does. And look at the example they give of Mia, the software developer in Tokyo. Her work itself isn't the issue. It's the, and I'm quoting here, the deluge of electronic signals and notifications that completely dissolves the lines between work and rest.
Ah, the blurring of boundaries.
Exactly. And the core insight here, the thing that's really costing us, is the constant imposition of what psychologists call cognitive switching costs.
Okay, break that down for us.
Every single time you get a notification, every time you do that quick check of your email, it forces your brain to completely switch gears. And doing that over and over, it just dramatically reduces your capacity for deep work.
Which is the one thing professionals actually need to get ahead.
It's the only thing that moves the needle. And we're systematically destroying our ability to do it.
So that breakdown of boundaries, that cognitive cost, leads right to the core philosophical tension we have to solve for the skeptic.
Yeah.
The dual nature of technology.
Yes.
We hear this anecdote about James, a data analyst in London. He's using these sophisticated apps to streamline his professional work. And that's the opportunity side, right? That's the promise. Enhanced output, freeing him up for, collaborative sketching of ideas with his offspring.
And that's the dream, isn't it? The tech utopia, the tool that makes you a better worker and a better parent.
There's always a but.
There's always a but. And here's the peril, which is just amplified by modern algorithmic design, the very same system that streamlines his work. It's also leveraging all of his attention data to entice him into extensive periods of scrolling.
So the tool that gives him free time is also the tool that's best at stealing it back.
Precisely. And this is not a moral failing on his part. That's critical. This is what the book calls algorithmic gravity. It's just physics in a way. The platforms are engineered to predict and exploit your moments of low willpower.
Algorithmic gravity, I like that phrase. It pulls you in.
It's designed to. The blueprint really emphasizes this duality. Technology itself is neutral. It's a hammer.
Yeah.
You can build a house or you can break a window. Our passive, unthinking response is what turns it into a burden. We have to move from being passive reactors to active guides.
So when people hear this, the immediate reaction is often, okay, I get it. I need to purge everything, delete all the apps. But the book, it redefines minimalism, doesn't it?
Completely. It says, look, this isn't about aesthetics. It's not about having a clean home screen with, just 2 icons on it.
Or those uncluttered physical spaces we see online.
Right. It moves way beyond that and shifts the focus entirely to cultivating agency. The power to deliberately, consciously choose your interactions.
Agency. That's the key word.
It's everything. And this is perfectly illustrated by Layla, the teacher in Cairo. She transformed her phone into a sanctuary. She didn't throw it away. She kept the essential apps. But the crucial difference is that her time on the device is now an investment, not an expenditure.
Investment versus expenditure. That's a powerful frame for an efficiency-minded person.
And what's really crucial for that audience, for the skeptic, is how the book immediately backs this up with quantifiable gains. It doesn't just stay in the philosophical realm.
It gives them the numbers.
It gives them the numbers. For anyone who fears that minimizing tech means sacrificing opportunity or efficiency, the source cites hard data. You can see up to a 20% reduction in screen time just with their proven methods, and more importantly, an 18% boost in concentration.
18%.
Yeah.
That's huge. Where does that number come from?
It's from a 2025 study in Neuroscience Today, and that boost is achieved by significantly reducing something called attention residue.
Attention residue. What's that?
It's the lingering thought fragments you have from a task you were just interrupted from. So if you're writing a report and you quickly check a news alert, when you go back to the report, a piece of your brain is still thinking about the news.
So you're never fully focused on the new task.
Never. You're bleeding cognitive resources. So fewer digital interruptions means lower cognitive load, lower attention residue, and that directly translates to higher effective output. That is efficiency.
That analysis really makes the case. It's not about absence. It's about thoughtful, high-leverage engagement. So the first brushstroke, as the book calls it, is setting intentions.
Yes. Your devices have to become active partners, not passive masters.
And we see this with Kriya, the founder in Mumbai. Her ritual is, well, it's pretty modest. She uses her phone only for specific focus application first thing in the morning.
It's such a small act, but it's profound. It immediately sets a framework of control for the entire day. It's a declaration that says, I'm in charge here. It turns the technology into a medium for clarity, not a source of confusion.
And it's interesting because that drive for focus clarity, it's not a new 21st century idea. The book connects it back to some pretty profound historical roots.
It does, and I love this part. It links this modern pursuit back to ancient wisdom, specifically to Matsuo Basho, the 13th century Japanese poet.
Famous for the haiku.
Exactly. The haiku is the art of deliberate choice. It's about finding the essence, about embracing brevity, and this isn't just some, flowery poetic anecdote. It's a mental model.
A mental model for an age of information overload.
Precisely. In an age where we are drowning in information, our brain craves the haiku. It wants the concise, the essential. That's a form of relief.
Right, and the source draws a direct line from that to Hiroshi, the blogger in Osaka. He uses concise, emotive writing. He's practicing a modern form of that art.
He is. He's showing that simplicity isn't just for aesthetics. It's a deep, time-honored art form that can shape our digital environment by forcing us to prioritize what's essential.
In all this whole philosophical grounding, it prepares your mind for the actual journey. There's this mention of Chloe, the Parisian student, who takes a moment of stillness before she even engages with her devices.
It's about stabilization. That moment of quiet ensures that when she does pick up her phone, the engagement is characterized by purpose, not by urgency or anxiety.
And that transition from understanding the philosophy to the actual practical mechanics, that's often the hardest leap for people to make.
It's everything. The philosophy is useless without a practical blueprint for how to actually do it. The listener needs to know, okay, how do I apply the haiku principle to my list of apps?
We've definitely established the why and the mindset. So let's jump right into that practical application. Section 2 of the book, which covers chapters 2 and 3, the actual mechanics of designing a life of digital control, and then, crucially, how to sustain that flow.
The nitty-gritty.
Exactly. Chapter 2 is called Crafting Your Digital Palette, Designing a Meaningful Tech Life. This feels like the instruction manual for the person who is just completely overwhelmed. It starts with curating your device ecosystem.
This is the moment where all that theory hits the screen. And the example of Layla in Cairo is the perfect blueprint to follow.
Remind us about Layla.
Her phone was, in the book's words, inundated. Useless games, obsolete notes, forgotten subscriptions. It was just digital detritus, a digital junk drawer.
I think we can all relate to that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And her solution was this process of rigorous deliberation. She went through everything and eliminated anything that did not serve a clear purpose. She kept her reading app, her family chat, and her planner. That was it.
So this isn't just, deleting a few files when you get a storage full notification.
Not at all. It's a deliberate architectural design process. Every single app that remains has to justify its existence. It has to prove its contribution to her actual life goals.
It makes sense for apps. But
Yeah.
here's where it gets really interesting, I think, for the professional listener. The section on mastering digital boundaries.
Yes.
We go back to James, the data analyst.
Yeah.
He used to let notifications basically dictate his entire cognitive availability. His solution was to establish a tranquility period at 7 p.m. to be with his family, deactivating most of his alerts. But I have to challenge this a bit. What about the listener whose work is global, who works across time zones? Their most critical communications might happen asynchronously late at night. Can we really endorse such rigid boundaries?
That is a critical question. And the blueprint addresses it not by saying everyone needs a 7 p.m. cutoff, but by framing the boundary as an act of self-gifting and, more importantly, as an intentional filter.
A filter, not a wall.
Exactly. For that global professional, the boundary might not be time-based, it might be category-based. So instead of deactivating all alerts at 7 p.m., they might set up a sophisticated, maybe even an AI-driven filter that instantly silences everything except critical, market-moving alerts from, say, 3 specific senior colleagues.
So the principle's the same, even if the application is different.
The core principle isn't disconnection, it's filtering for intentionality. James's 7 p.m. rule is just his specific personalized filter that works for his life. Yours might look completely different.
That reframing filter, not avoidance, that's vital. And that intentionality extends to the next part, releasing digital clutter. This feels like more than just spring cleaning. The book talks about the emotional consequence of all this accumulated digital neglect.
It's huge, and the example of Ethan, the freelancer in Seattle, is so poignant. He felt his thousands of unread emails and his folders of neglected photos were like a diminutive anchor to his soul.
A diminutive anchor. That's a great description.
We can actually analyze this through the lens of cognitive psychology. That diminutive anchor is really a massive collection of what are called unresolved open loops.
Open loops.
Yeah. Every unread email, every messy folder, it occupies a tiny percentage of your brain's RAM. It's a task your subconscious knows is unfinished. So when Ethan finally, meticulously, archived and deleted all of that, the relief he felt, which is described as an emotional catharsis, was the direct result of achieving cognitive closure.
So you're freeing up mental energy.
A ton of it. You're removing that low-level mental taxation, which frees up so much energy for high-level creative work. The transformation of your device into a digital sanctuary, it only happens when you settle those psychological debts.
Okay, so that's the initial design phase. But then we move into chapter 3. Harmonizing your digital rhythm, sustaining the flow. This is about maintenance. This is where the long-term habits are built. It starts with building rituals.
Right, because the design is one thing, but making it stick is another.
And the example is Chloe, the Parisian student. She starts her day with tea and a 5-minute review of a preferred podcast.
And these rituals, they provide the structural counterpoint to the chaotic fluidity of digital life. Chloe's ritual. It's not really about the podcast itself.
What's it about then?
It's about the act of deliberately selecting a meaningful and finite use of technology over the alternative, which is mindless morning browsing. That small act generates a sense of calm and intentionality that then carries through the rest of her day. It effectively mitigates the morning deluge before it can even start.
That structure is so essential, especially for the next point. Navigating distractions with grace. We hear about James again. When he was overwhelmed by notifications, he eventually learned to greet each occurrence with a positive response and only address the important ones.
This is a really subtle but profound psychological shift. The distraction is no longer a source of exasperation. It's not, another email.
Right.
Instead, it becomes an opportunity to practice patience and routine adherence. It transforms a challenge into a little training exercise for your executive function, for your self-control.
Okay, now, let's really tackle that hard-to-convince audience directly. The professional who's listening and thinking, My life is pure chaos. I need flexibility. This rigid minimalism thing will just fail the first time I have a high-stress deadline.
The all-or-nothing objection?
Exactly. We have to discuss the pros and cons of flexibility and that inevitable risk of just snapping back to old habits during periods of high stress.
And this is where the blueprint really proves its resilience. It directly addresses this with a concept called adapting to life's digital waves.
Digital waves. I like that.
It uses Priya, the Mumbai founder, as the case study. She faced a new, intense project that demanded a huge increase in her screen time. On the surface, that looks like a regression, a failure.
She broke the rules.
But her move was highly intentional. She didn't just start scrolling more. She substituted late-night, low-value scrolling with early morning, high-value, urgent calls.
So she traded bad screen time for good screen time.
It was a calculated evolution of her system, not a defeat. And this demonstrates the most critical principle of the whole blueprint. Resilience isn't about maintaining static, rigid limits. It's about maintaining the core intention of control, even if the shape of your digital interaction has to change.
So the goal is always intentional screen time, regardless of the quantity.
Always. The quantity might go up or down based on life's demands. The intentionality must remain constant.
That distinction, evolution versus regression, is absolutely key to selling this to the skeptical professional. And maintaining that intentionality, it seems to require deliberate breaks. The idea of resting in the silence of disconnect.
Yes. The system needs downtime to reboot.
We hear about Hiroshi, the blogger in Osaka. He reserves his Sunday afternoons for a completely device-free period to achieve intellectual rejuvenation.
The science on this is crystal clear. It's about restorative deep processing. That silence isn't a void. It's not empty time. It's an active period of mental consolidation for your brain.
What's happening in the brain during that time?
By removing all the external stimuli, you're allowing the brain to process, to synthesize information, and to create new, novel connections between ideas. It's the necessary preparation for renewed vigor and creativity.
So it's not slacking off, it's sharpening the saw.
Exactly. And if the professional audience can see disconnection as a necessary performance input, not just an absence of work, they are far, far more likely to adhere to it.
We've laid out the rhythm and the practical mechanics. Now we're moving into the deeper, more profound sections of the book, chapters 4 and 5. This is about deepening the practice and expanding horizons.
This is where it goes from being a routine to being a part of you.
It seems like this is where the practice transforms from just managing your routine into cultivating a lasting inner peace and a real sense of presence.
It is. Chapter 4, deepening your digital roots. It starts with rooting yourself in presence. And Chloe's realization on a rainy afternoon is a perfect analogy for this.
What did she realize?
She realized that simply creating physical distance from her screen naturally created mental space. When the device isn't within arm's reach, your brain stops expending a little bit of energy on the possibility of immediate engagement.
It's not a temptation anymore.
Right. And that allows your thoughts to just circulate more freely. Presence is the cognitive anchor that stabilizes the entire digital shift. It's the foundation for everything else.
And once you're rooted in that presence, the practice seems to shift from one of restriction to one of enrichment. You can start nourishing your soul with intentional tech.
Yes, this is such a critical turn.
The example of Layla, the teacher in Cairo, is great here. She didn't just purge her tablet. She consciously transformed it into what the book calls a garden for the soul. She loaded it with poetry and language applications.
And we can analyze the neurological pathways here. Passive consumption, mindlessly scrolling through a feed that engages the dopamine reward system. You get these quick, superficial hits that just leave you wanting more.
The empty calories of the internet.
Exactly. But intentional tech use like learning a language or engaging with poetry, that activates the slower, deeper neural pathways associated with intentional learning and long-term gratification.
So it's a different kind of reward.
A much more satisfying one. Her quiet evenings become a celebration of learning because she's actively cultivating her own growth, not just passively consuming someone else's content. Technology, in this mode, becomes a conduit of intellectual sustenance.
The healing aspect here seems really fundamental too. Healing from digital overwhelm is often about mitigating the guilt we feel.
Oh, the guilt is a huge part of it.
James, the data analyst, took a very methodical approach to his backlog of unread emails. He didn't just delete them all in a panic. And the core lesson here seems to be self-forgiveness for past behaviors and the reclaiming of personal space.
Yes. It's not the frantic purge that works long-term. It's the methodical, intentional closure of those open loops we talked about. It's about acknowledging past failure without letting it dictate your present behavior.
And this entire process, it strengthens your core ability to function under pressure, strengthening your inner resilience.
Absolutely. We see Priya again facing a consistently hectic season at work. What grounded her was her simple morning ritual. The book likens her to a tree bending but not breaking in the wind.
And that's such a great image.
It is, because resilience isn't some inherent trait you're born with. It's a learned behavior, and it's developed by consistently returning to that fixed point of your intention, especially when external chaos is at its peak. Every time you do that, you reinforce the neural pathway of control.
Okay, so that brings us to Chapter 5, Expanding Your Digital Horizon. And this chapter really flips the narrative we often hear about minimalism.
How so?
It reassures us that this isn't about becoming a hermit. It's not about isolation or rejecting the world. It's about leveraging technology for a better, deeper integration with the real world.
I love this part. Weaving tech into outdoor adventures is the perfect test case for this kind of thoughtful integration.
Tell us about that.
So James, on his hikes, uses a rudimentary app to document wildflower photographs. And he uses these photos later to inspire sketches. Now, a critic might say, see, the device is still pulling him out of the moment.
That would be my first thought, honestly. He's still looking at a screen in the middle of a forest.
But the blueprint argues that the intentional use of the app as a memory tool for a later creative act, rather than as a distraction engine, means the technology is actually serving the act of wonder and presence. It allows him to attune himself to the forest even more deeply, knowing his experience is preserved for later creative output.
That focus on output rather than passive consumption, that seems to be the key differentiator in all these examples.
It is. The tool then becomes about building a bridge to real-life joys. We see this with Maria, the organizer in Austin. She uses her device to arrange social gatherings, sending invitations, sharing recipes. But the actual fulfillment, the joy, unfolds in the offline world.
Where hands get sticky with homemade jam.
Exactly. The screen is just the logistical conduit. It enables genuine, tangible, sticky human connection. It's the servant, not the master.
And the power of that controlled screen can extend globally. There's a part about sharing your journey with the global village.
Yes, with Hiroshi, the blogger from Osaka. He shares his experiences with his digital detox, and his story resonates with a reader all the way in Brazil. In that context, the screen stops being a barrier and becomes a window rather than a wall.
It connects kindred spirits.
It shows that technology can be used deliberately for asynchronous, meaningful connection, rather than just synchronous, superficial noise.
And finally, within this expansion phase, restoring balance through digital breaks is positioned as vital for sustainability. Layla allocates an evening hour just for reading, allowing the sensation of rejuvenation to wash over one's being.
And this restorative process is completely non-negotiable. The failure to take these kinds of deliberate screen-free pauses results in the slow, persistent loss of that very sensation of rejuvenation.
Which leads right back to that 15% fatigue statistic we started with.
It's the direct cause. These breaks need to be scheduled. They are periods for emotional and cognitive recalibration. They ensure that you return to your responsibilities refreshed, ready to achieve superior results.
Okay, we've covered the foundation, practical design, how to sustain the flow, how to deepen the roots, and how to expand your horizons. We're now entering the final massive phase of this blueprint, chapters 6 through 10, plus the afterward.
The home stretch.
This is the culmination. It's about legacy, the eternal dance, and the complete sustainable transformation. I think we need to discuss this section carefully because this is what addresses the long-term skeptic, the person who thinks this is all just a fad.
This is the section that shifts the focus from purely internal change to external impact, and it addresses that deep need for lifelong continuity. It proves that this blueprint isn't just a temporary vacation from being connected, it's a fully integrated operating system upgrade for your life.
Let's start with Chapter 6, Strengthening Your Digital Legacy. The focus is on passing peace forward. This feels so crucial for listeners who want their hard-won practices to have a lasting impact, maybe on their kids or their colleagues.
It's about thinking beyond yourself.
We need to look closely at this idea of crafting a mindful digital inheritance. James, the data analyst, didn't just declutter for himself. He organized his entire digital environment for his children, meticulously arranging files and even annotating his preferred applications.
This is a conscious, deliberate decision to leave behind a narrative of intentionality. Think about it. He took the time to organize his photos into albums, labeling them with memories from family excursions.
Instead of just leaving a chaotic camera roll of 30,000 pictures.
Exactly. This is an intentional act of organizing his past into a usable, uncluttered story for the future. And for the professional listener, this translates directly. An uncluttered, organized digital environment is a final act of respect. It signals efficiency and purpose to the next generation. It's a legacy of cognitive hygiene.
And that legacy doesn't just have to be for after you're gone. It spreads through personal, non-preachy example in the here and now.
Yes, the book talks about Maria, the Austin organizer. She just shared her calm routine with her neighbors, and it led one of her friends to clear out her own device. She came back with this immense sense of gratitude.
So it's the tranquility itself that sells the concept.
It becomes a conspicuous feature in the community. People notice your calm and they want to know how you got it.
And crucially, that legacy has to include resilience. We see Priya again maintaining her composure during a period of what the book calls unrelenting technological demands by just returning to her brief, simple tech check-in ritual.
And that steady spirit, it's not just personal, it's a testament to her endurance that's visible to her entire team. It reinforces her legacy as this pillar of calm control right in the middle of chaos.
Okay, Chapter 7 moves into illuminating your digital path, living the minimalist vision. This feels like the part where you start to really see the payoff. The vision becomes reality.
This is vision realization, absolutely. It starts with kindling joy through intentional choices. Layla replaced her disorganized apps with a curated selection language lessons, music that created a distinct sensation of tingling.
A sensation of tingling, that's an interesting choice of words.
It is, because the focus shifts completely away from the obligation to check your devices and toward the genuine fulfillment you can derive from real engagement. It's the difference between doing a chore and enjoying a hobby.
And the ultimate success marker here is living as a beacon of digital peace. Ethan's tranquil demeanor, his calm mornings with family, his dedicated work blocks, his ability to unwind under the night sky, it becomes a visible proof point for his entire community.
His internal peace starts to radiate outward. It makes the minimalist vision tangible and aspirational for other people. The blueprint transforms you from being reactive to your environment to being an intentional, positive influence on it.
Chapters 8, 9, and 10 really conclude the journey. They emphasize this lifelong harmony and provide the final argument for sustainability. Chapter 8 talks about the eternal digital dance.
I love that title.
Chloe, the student, recognized that constantly struggling with her digital disorder was just exhausting. But surrendering to the rhythm of simplicity yielded this tranquility that resembled musical harmony.
This acceptance stage is so crucial for long-term sustainability. It's the moment the practice moves from requiring constant willpower to becoming effortless. It becomes second nature.
It's an understanding that digital control, much like life itself, isn't a fixed state you achieve once. It's a continuous dance.
And Priya's ability to adapt to her demanding project seasons, what the book calls dancing through life's digital seasons, shows that the practice isn't static. It's a flexible, resilient system that adapts to the environment without ever breaking that core principle of intentionality.
Chapter 9 is called Transcending the Digital Veil, a Journey to Wholeness. This seems to show an even deeper level of integration.
It is. Ethan, the freelancer, realized that the constant stream of notifications had obscured his presence. It made him feel perpetually hurried and fragmented. He wasn't really there.
So lifting the curtain of digital distractions means regaining your own self-perception, your clarity about your own internal state.
Exactly. And then you get to the final integration of the tool into the self. Layla uses her tablet for yoga tutorials. This is embracing the unity of mind, body, and tech.
So the device is fully reconciled. It's moved past its role as just a source of distraction.
And it becomes a medium for physical health and philosophical reflection. It completely transcends the conventional digital versus physical boundary and demonstrates full technological servitude to a person's wholeness.
And that brings us to the final chapter, Chapter 10, Internal Peace in Your Digital Nest, the complete minimalist transformation. This is the full cycle. This is the convincing argument for the long-term skeptic who's asking if this transformation is really permanent.
And the answer is that it's permanent precisely because it's cyclical and recursive. We return to Ethan one last time. His journey transitioned from that fragmented digital world to a state of comprehensive integration. The transformation wasn't a single traumatic quick fix.
No, it was a full cycle of growth and renewal.
from purging the clutter to deepening connections, and finally achieving a state of internal peace. He's now resting in the stillness of his accomplishments, recognizing that his external environment is just a reflection of his internal mastery.
And finally, Layla becomes the guardian of her digital Eden. Her commitment to continuous maintenance, updating apps, teaching mindfulness to others, reinforces the final, critical lesson of the blueprint.
Which is that this state of harmony requires ongoing nurturing and safeguarding. You have to protect it against the inevitable, persistent pull of 2025's digital chaos. It's not an outcome you achieve, it's a continuous role you inhabit.
So after this incredibly deep dive into all 10 chapters, what's the ultimate conclusion? What's the so what for our listener who's stuck with us through all of this?
The blueprint offers a comprehensive, holistic framework that is tailored specifically to counter the aggressive, personalized distractions of our current tech landscape. It moves you sequentially through these stages: foundation, design, sustaining flow, deepening roots, expanding horizons, legacy, vision, and finally, eternal harmony.
It's a complete journey.
It is. And the key transformation is mastering the tools of your life so that your technology augments your essential identity rather than dictates it. By blending that stoic discipline of intentional control with modern tech innovation, the process becomes one of proactive mastery. And this guarantees the skeptical professional that controlled engagement is, in fact, the highest form of efficiency.
It's a remarkable shift, isn't it? Moving from passively reacting to whatever the algorithm demands to actively dictating technology's precise role in your life. The source material ends by emphasizing that this whole journey, it's not a conclusion, it's the initiation of a new phase. It's a catalyst for potential change in your friends, your family, your colleagues.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to mull over based on this entire comprehensive blueprint.
Let's hear it.
If your most intentional digital habit, that single curated app, that one screen-free ritual, that highly filtered inbox, if that becomes your lasting legacy, what message about genuine balance and about intellectual efficiency are you ultimately sending to our highly connected, highly competitive world?
Food for thought indeed. Thank you for joining us on this incredibly detailed deep dive into mastering the tech age. We hope this blueprint helps you reclaim your focus and, maybe more importantly, your agency.
And that's a wrap for today's chat. Big thanks to my friends for keeping the conversation flowing, and to you for hanging out with us. If you like this talk, don't forget to share it and hit follow so you won't miss the next one. Take care, stay inspired, and we'll catch up soon.